Okay. Okay. So this is technically part two, but I guess I'm going to start it over. So how much faster is the mind living ahead of the body? The question has taken our attention to what our intelligence does with information, and so we can't ignore it. The human being becomes an individual, and in being an individual has a world of information to interact with. It's like being a biological human being is a sort of cosmic stance. How far ahead can the mind live, really ahead of the body? And in what manner and view of looking at life does this make sense? It makes sense in the sense that, for example, somebody's sitting on the couch watching TV, they become thirsty. In their mind, there's suddenly a vision of them, and they've gone to the fridge and they've opened the fridge and they've grabbed a bottle of water, for example. So the mind is living ahead. You're still on the couch watching TV, but the thought occurs of your activity. The inner activity of what you want takes place. So that's like the mind living ahead of the body. Then the body follows it up, right? So it's kind of like the administration of the biological organism is being done through language and attention. That's the secret of life, language and attention. Or what your attention is doing with language. Really, it's like the discovery of the power of the presence of consciousness in the realm. With what sort of honor does the human species wake up in the morning? So we kind of figured out, right, that there's like four academic factors and ways of looking at how the mind can advance, right? So we're looking at a mind on a planet, not just a human mind. You know, I'm not acting like a human expert, I'm acting like a strategist, okay? like a strategist, like an eagle from the sky looking at the whole forest kind of strategy, right? So I'm like, okay, there's this biological organism. So there's a biological factor. It can envision its advanced biological state. Then there's a psychological factor. It can envision its advanced psychological state. Then there's a social factor. It can imagine its advanced social state, right? And then there's a behavioral factor. It can in some sense envision its most advanced behavior, right? So it's like regardless of our name, personality, honor, dishonor, loyalty, its absence, trying to be cool or bad, and all of this, there's in reality a biological organism. This biological organism in its presence in the world has extended dimensions of its own activity. So that means it's like a part of life is going to maintaining the biological factor, the biological existence. Another part of life is going to maintaining the psychological factor. Another part, it's like the psychological factor of some human beings could be interweaved with their social factor. There's some human beings, their psychological factor is not connected to the imagined social factor. It's more connected to imagine the natural factor, right? Like a child raised on a farm has a completely different sense of the vitality of the energy of life than some kid who's been raised in an urban environment from the beginning. So the behavioral factor, ultimately, all of it is going to, in some sense, okay, what is the vision of the organism? And so just like the employee looks at a company and it's like, what's the vision of this company? How advanced is this company I'm going to work for? Imagine, like, you wonder, okay, how advanced is the world that you're in? So what are the limits to the fathoming of advancement? Like, are there limits there? So to wonder about a mind living ahead of the body is a consideration that the psychological factor has a faster processing speed than the biological factor. Do you know what that means? That means our minds are happening as a faster phenomenological activity than our body, right? But it's kind of bizarre because we think it's the body that projects the mind, but in some sense, it's the body that receives the signal and then projects. So the body is limited to the speed of the signal. Some people are like, yo, look at these yogis in such good health doing such next level acrobatic meditations, but at the same time, like, no, it's like it's an antenna. The human body. So when we look at the human mind, it's not just an antenna. There is also the authority of the divine will in the context, in the background context of God knowing. To me, reality has a very interesting geometry to it. Like the yin yang symbol, there is like the known and the unknown, and then there's an awareness to both of them at the same time. That awareness to both the known and the unknown is God. Like literally, that's the archetype that it fits. So, anyways, so beyond biological advancement, beyond psychological advancement, beyond social advancement, behavioral advancement, we find that the mind is like an inner, it's like another life. It's like we don't celebrate the birthday of the mind, we celebrate the birthday of the body. You know why? Because the mind is not born, it just suddenly starts playing a role. I don't know if people hear what I'm saying. Like your body is born, sure, but your mind, you suddenly are a person, right? It's not like you're suddenly. It's like, yo, this is the day my personality was born. Can we celebrate it? It's like no, because this, because the personality is not born. You just consciousness just plays the part. It's like a river is moving and you jump into it and you're suddenly an archetype. So to wonder about how far ahead the mind can be, it's like you can even see this in people playing chess. Like it's not something I need to even prove. It's like it's so out there that you can look at something and in accordance to how patient you are to observe to understand, not observe to consume. Those are two different ways. There's some people looking at things and they're like, I want it. And there's some people who look at things and they're like, what am I looking at? And then the question keeps coming, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? And then as the angles accumulate, the various angles to seeing something, the meaning of the object is not just the object. The meaning of the subject is not just a specific objective correlation. Somebody in the chat section says synchronicity seems to work like what you're talking about, right? So I could say something like this, where this is how I've kind of understood the Jungian synchronicity. See, I'm a person who I consider the inner realms and the outer realms. What that means is there's a world behind your eyes and there's the world in front of them. So you start off in the world in front of your eyes, and as you experience reality, the world behind your eyes starts to take shape. So what I see when somebody says Jungian synchronicity, it's pretty much what in the inner narrative behind the eyes of the organism is aligning to what is outside, because it's suddenly a miracle discovery of a value. Do you understand? It's like, whoa, something that had meaning to me has been found in the outer, right? So, what I'm trying to tell you is that your attention to reality is how you're holding reality, and the context you choose is preference oriented. You know, I got bored of the past. Imagine if there was like some costume game, just like a person can wear different costumes, it's equivalent to like a time traveler. It's equivalent to a time traveler, right? Like going to different times, right? So the person can wear like an old century costume, they can wear a costume relevant to past culture, present culture. You're left with the future. It's pretty much like ask what not what you can do for your future self. Not ask not what your future self can do for you, but what you can do for your future self. Something in those lines. Right? So the mind fathoms the future self and the body follows up the actualization process. So to be a person is way more complex because it is in some sense all about how information is being processed between various terminals of expression from various points of reference. For me, I was like, okay, I don't know if this counts as anything deep, but the idea was I wondered about, okay, how did human beings behave in the past? Okay, thanks, history books, I cried enough, right? And then you look in the present and you're like, okay, What can I learn from the present? And you see the current condition of the world, and all you're left with is like this accumulation of pattern of what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and the only thing that's waiting is the future. And so, if in the educational system makes it uncool to introduce the future, then the educational system doesn't exist. That's a weird building. Do you know? The idea is to try to wonder, okay, how can we define the mind, to wonder if it's living ahead of the body, and how can we define the body? The question is kind of like a double-edged sword where you can't really grip the idea. Okay. So if you wonder about it, you're like, okay, so how do I know I'm a body? I need to have a mind. How do I know I'm a mind? I need a body to have a mind for, right? So it's as if we are born in a paradox. The human condition is as mysterious as a paradox existing, right? So there's a biological organism, but this biological organism cannot know it's a biological organism until it's a psychological uh, entity, right? So there's like right now, who's speaking to you is not just a biological organism. I'm not a statue I'm not a cellular statue. So what I'm saying is like the reality of life is that there's something moving the moment. It tends to move it in accordance to what sort of vision ahead your attention has found. So I don't know if people have seen it, but there was this video of there's this game and there's these pillars like on this machine and they fall and the person has to grab them before they hit the ground. Right? There comes a point in your own attention where you suddenly realize the dynamism of vision, right? So the mysterion, the question mark of life can be applied to everything. Suddenly you can become a question mark to yourself, right? Suddenly others, there's a question mark above them, right? So then reality becomes a position where we wonder about the intention of organisms in space. And time is how we, coordinate the story. What magnificent opportunities, what incredible ways are there that human intelligence can bring forth and usher in the most advanced effort that human beings have witnessed? Imagine the blame game is over. The species has released its emotional baggage. It looks into the far future. At least one human mind asked itself, why should I care for my existence within the presence of the activity of a species? What is the value of being a human being at a time where everything seems to be destroying it? And I realize now is the time. It's as if like what the ancestors expected from the future generations were, don't you dare quit. You go as far as you can to see how the future, to prepare the past for the future. The might of the human species. It's like there will be songs, on different planets sung about the greatness of the human species, the genius and hilarious human species. They're like, why were you so savage and violent? And we're like, we didn't know better. That's the hilarious angle of how extraterrestrials would see us. And then at the same time, we managed to look at what crushed our hearts and managed to, in some sense, bring forth the hearts that are diamond born. What that means is the idea of the diamond is incredible crystallization and survival through pressure. So to create an advanced civilization, civilization 2.0, would be as if the Buddha spoke about diamond beings in the the sense of like perfected beings. It would be as if a sort of diamond civilization. That's what civilization 2.0 is. It is the crystallization of 8 billion organisms as they care for that which is beyond them. Might be a new feeling, but it's the necessary one. People are like, Mr. Within, are you saying I should live my life in the context? Should I live my life in the context of just everything for the future, for the future? I'm saying like you get to choose it yourself. You get to choose what history means to you, right? The teachers in the educational system don't ask it, so you have to ask it about yourself. You have to try to find pretty much an accurate view on the human condition, and then interact, retaliate as a human force, and it tends to be to preserve something, right? It's as if the person's like, all right, it's like life is temporary, everybody's acting relaxed and ignorant of an inevitable death, so the meaning of life seems that in the primacy in how life is in its prime, it serves the greatest outcome. And I don't know, do we really need like meetings for world leaders to be like, oh yeah, we're all the same species on a rock in the middle of nowhere. The storytelling has been taken so seriously that it's okay to watch humanity perish. It's so easy to reset the global morality by prioritizing that the greatness of the human being is the suggestion that every human being is a unique DNA. Do you know what that means? That means if every human being's behavior was like a martial art, every person is their own martial art master of their inner realm. That means it's like when you see someone who's, let's say, can communicate, it's a human being that has a sort of inner realm mastery. What does that mean? That means the content is there. You see, and then it's easy to speak. You don't see ahead and then you speak, the words fall apart. So the mind that is living ahead of the body. Now, this guy in human history at a time where humanity is slowly being sucked into this vacuum of like, yo, stay bored and artificial. Like, it's like, what kind of civilization is this? That the most advanced is hiding? The most advanced systems, opportunities? Where is like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think what's gonna happen is all those elitist, let's say, powerful individuals on earth who've kind of like kept humanity back from its advancement, like those people, their grandchildren are gonna be like, WTF were our ancestors doing? What is this? It's like, would we rather have one person be advanced in a world, or do we want everybody to be so advanced that at some point there is so many backup systems that if one person makes a mistake, there's 8 billion others to get to, in some sense, that have their back. You see, it's just how energy throughout the day finds itself within a very vast connectivity pattern. So what's really missing is honor, right? It's like, fun fact, in places where they had honor, there was less crime. Why? Because life wasn't that low. It wasn't reduced to the level of just an object value. It had a subjective value. Who you were in the presence of your world mattered. Whether you were a stoic, philosopher, or a Japanese, like, you know, imperialist, So, examples of the mind living ahead of the body. I can fathom ahead of the body. Proven. Right? That's the proof. The proof is I can imagine how my body moves tomorrow. I can imagine how 8 billion biological organisms will journey through the space-time continuum. It doesn't matter what story you tell them, it's the journey. It's the quality of the journey. When we realize this, compassion maximizes on earth. That means if there were monks, futuristic monks, they would look at their technology and they would be like, oh my God, global compassion has reached 99.9%, you know? And then they're like, yo, man, you need to be compassionate too. Oh my God, 100% global compassion. It's honestly in the honor of what are we living? What sort of story do I need to tell myself, like a personal story? Do I need to tell myself the story my family tells itself? Do I need to tell the story the groups that I'm in, let's say the environments, you know, communities I'm involved in, should I let them, do you know, or should it in some sense be the species, everybody telling me what I should think? Or should it be in some sense the cosmos, I should just become an astrophysicist, you know? It's like, yo, who knew modern spirituality required an astrophysics course? Can you imagine in the future having like a spiritual astrophysicist? Like, I think that would blow people's minds. It's like, yo, Pluto spoke to me, folks. It spoke to me. What did Pluto say? Pluto said, fuck off. I'm joking. Yo, man, I honestly wish human beings felt so free to speak about the macrocosmic purpose of the species. But it seems I've stumbled into a room that modernity feels it's forbidden, but the future laughs at how it will be the norm. There will come a time where the most intelligent human activity will be considered to be communication. And you know what that means? That means how you communicate is what you're becoming. You see, there's different ways that it's like an intelligent organism is engaging with reality. Really, that's what it is. It really what it is. It's honestly like, imagine there's 8 billion beings. They're suddenly put on a planet. They open their eyes and then they suddenly close their eyes, and in that one gaze, one glimpse they had of what the world is, they have to make a decision. And there's some people who care for what their eyes find as new treasure. You know, I found something. I don't know if you know what it is. I consider it as a blessing. But what it was that in the middle of my, let's say, personal and like, let's say, small social life, suddenly this idea emerged. Why isn't everybody building an advanced civilization? Why not? And I couldn't find an answer. I couldn't find an answer to why we're not, everybody's not getting paid to build an advanced civilization, to advance civilization. Like, I don't understand this. Like, what the hell are world leaders doing? Just look at people and be like, yo, you live in somewhere more advanced? Well, you got to behave more advanced. So there has to come a global acknowledgement of, yo, we're not just vicious, savage animals fighting over land. What we are is 8 billion human minds. That means 8 million human minds means before even we have AI, even though we have AI right now, we have to come up with a solution, right? Like, you know what it is? It's like, for me, there's what's bizarre about life is how the global community, like, there's war going on right now as I'm speaking on the planet. And what's bizarre is that the global community has to be like, pause this video game. Pause this video game. What happens usually, let's say there's a classroom and the teacher hasn't come into the classroom in the morning yet, right? And this two students start fighting and starts destroying each other, like physically fighting, like MMA, right? What, and the whole class is watching. That's what's going on right now in current, like currently, right? In current globally, current. But imagine, like, in another situation, in another view, it would be all the students would immediately grab the two, and in some sense pause the war. The war has to be stopped, you know. Pretty much, it's either order manages the chaos or a greater chaos will manage the chaos. I think we should have find an ordered way, because chaos is unnecessary when the human mind has such an advanced potential. That means there's one view where we're like, yo, it's a planet filled with animals, right? But then there's another view. There's another view where we're like, what if it was a planet filled with 8 billion geniuses, each having access to an Earth only they can see? What if their greatest contribution could become the greatest contribution of humanity? What if there was an outlet for any human being who just cared for the advancement of civilization? You see, it's really, when you, it's like there is no such thing as a smart person. There's just a person who can see further than the rest. That's it. Call it smart, call it whatever. It's wondering about where the current pattern is going and what will replace the normality of today that people so obliviously appreciate. You see, there is a cost to every moment's action, but the cost is not in the sense of something coming and going, more as if like what is being sculpted, right? So it's kind of like the artist would say, like, you know, your artwork is complete not when you can't add anything. The artist would say your artwork is complete when you can no longer remove anything from it. So right now, there's some things that when every person who looks at civilization and wonders about how advanced it can be, you're gonna see some things that are happening on the earth that are unnecessary. What you do about it is that you in some sense communicate. Imagine suddenly all wars on earth had stopped, were paused, and people were like, all the people fighting were like, why? We want to fight. Who's stopping these wars? Who's pausing the video game of battle? And they suddenly see it's an individual who's like, yo, we need everybody to build an advanced civilization. And they're like, what? Now? In the middle of our battle? Yep. To forget the violence of the past and to live as an advanced human being, the advanced humanity. You want to wake up as part of the advanced humanity, or you want to wake up as, yo, it's a free for all of how compassionate savagery can be. An advanced civilization, an advanced being means a world that needs to be in an advanced world. Technically, the argument can be made that there are no advanced beings until an advanced world is present, an advanced civilization. So when we built the advanced civilization, we're truly advanced beings. Without an advanced civilization, everybody has dreams. Yo, imagine like Martin Luther King was like, I have a dream, and imagine some sci-fi writer came right afterwards. I have a dream of 4,000 years from now. The idea is the importance of the action, to see beyond physical dimension of life, to understand that spirituality is not language, but the language can lead to it. At some point, whatever, like this is my theory, I think because we get tired as organisms, everybody is honest when they're tired. Okay? Because to not be honest is to maintain something energetically. Who was it? Aristotle. He's like, every time you're dishonest, you're like creating a version of yourself. You gotta remember. Aristotle was pretty much like, I've had it with these lies. You know, guys, right now, I'm thinking of really what it is the space where the free will can engage. So in front of my eyes, I can move my body, but when I close my eyes, there's attention, and where my attention goes, reality animates. So to practice the concentration required in life, I'm just that guy in history saying, yo, let's concentrate on the most advanced variable. Let's try to behave like an advanced species to see what outcome it gives. Let us give ourselves the permission to still fall in love with a better world. An advanced civilization doesn't mean a technocracy. It means a civilization that has the most advanced approach to technology, to biology, to psychology, to society, to the behavior of everybody. That means in an advanced civilization, there will be a massive honor system. Children will ask their parents, it's like, what should I do when I grow up? And the parents are going to be like, there's one thing to do, son, you know, to serve the advancement of civilization. Like, where does that take the mind of the individual? It means to advance every moment that you're in, to try to find the most advanced factor. That means to try to find the most advanced way to like listen to this lecture, the most advanced way to engage the YouTube channel. The mind is living ahead of the body when it comes to the consideration of what will happen to the body, when it comes to the consideration of what does it mean to be an organism, to be a body. And then when it goes to the level of meaning, the question comes, where is the meaning starting from? And then the origin point of reality goes through a sort of cyclical, strange journey of like, you think it's the outer realms, then you think it's the inner realms. Then you reach a sort of humility with the unknown, that the authority, the prime authority of the realm moves you. And so really what it is that it's like the demonstration of the greatest power is simultaneously the greatest humility, in the sense that one puts down the power because they're in the presence of something greater. That means it's like at the same time we have, like, if the idea of the advanced civilization is perhaps like the greatest idea of for the human effort, the idea of God is the greatest idea for a being. So for a human being, it would be a parallel, it would be together. So anyways, guys, the mystery goes on. When we dream, well, the mind is living ahead, of the body. When you sit down and set goals and you have aspirations, ambitions, visions, that's like the mind thinking ahead. So, for example, when you zone out and think about the future, it's called temporal dissonance. so, so, so the way, so at the same time that the mind can live ahead as a thought, like you can fathom the thoughts of what the moment will look like in the future, simultaneously from an angle of mindfulness, the more you live, it's like the greatest way to live ahead of the body is by being fully present. To be fully present also means to be fully detached from that which requires the energy of attention to be. Anyways, daydreaming and imagination. Usually I have this vision that anybody who daydreamed in class would become a writer soon, you know. So there's daydreaming and imagination, and then there's anticipation and planning. All right, so the mind is living ahead. It's like that's the point of it. We're all just preparing for how tomorrow will look like. But we don't realize we're also the reason why tomorrow looks like the way it will. So anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I'll see you in Mr. Within's Research Lab. And an advanced civilization is the future's birthright. It belongs to them. The future deserves our greatest effort. Whoever you are, remember that. Thank you.